Good morning everyone. My name is Lalit Soni and I welcome you all in this live session by Drishti IAS. We'll be discussing Indian Express newspaper. As always, we'll start with the front page and then we'll go to the important article of the day. We have a lot to discuss today. So might be a chance that we won't be doing the editorial today, but we'll be taking editorial in the editorial analysis series. You can watch there. Okay. Otherwise, if it is important, I'll take it tomorrow. Okay. So now today we'll be looking at the electoral bond reserved verdict. As I told you, this electoral bond thing was in news and the Supreme Court was supposed to give its verdict. So after hearing the arguments, they have reserved the verdict judgment for a time being, and then they will announce it after the analysis of the arguments. Okay, but we will see what concern Supreme Court has rose, what they have told about this judgment, this issue. So we'll talk about that. After that, the adaptation gap report. Okay, when we are talking about climate change is a real issue now. You have to think about it now because before it's too late. I would say it's already too late, but anyways, let's hope for the best. So they are saying that there is a gap in the financing, climate financing. If we are talking about, this report is focusing on that and saying that whatever targets we are having with respect to that, the finance we are receiving is very less and not up to the mark. Okay, we'll talk about that. After that, we'll go through this article, that is Kozhikode City of Literature. So basically an agency of UN has designated this city Kozhikode as City of Literature. Other than that, they have also took Gwalior for their music. Okay, you can say City of Music. Okay, then after we'll look at some world affairs and then miscellaneous. After that, we will wrap up the session. So let's start with the first article, or before that we will see the front page. This is today's front page. It is about the electoral bond judgment only. We'll talk about it. After that, there is some sport related news. Then there is this Mahua Mitra case. Okay, in this case, you know that some member of parliament has given their login ID password to the portal where they are supposed to ask questions. So this businessman has direct access to those questions. He used to write those questions for her and she used to reiterate them in the parliament. Okay, so that nexus has been in the news, and because of which they started a scrutiny on this issue. So the ethics committee of the house has been taking up this issue. So in that issue there are some development, but we don't have to go into it. Only thing you have to remember is that there are few committees like ethics committee. Since it is in news, it becomes important for you. And then there is privilege committee. Okay, so you have to go through this committee, their constitution, membership in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That is your homework. You have to do it on your own. Okay, so let's move ahead. We'll start with the first article, that is reserve verdict on electoral bond scheme. Okay, I have discussed all the facet of electoral bond. What are they? Why they are important? Why they have been bought into the system? What are the concerns related to it? All these things have been discussed in the past lectures. So now in this video or this live session, we will be discussing about what concerns Supreme Court has talked about. Okay, so they have said that it is slightly difficult to accept that voters has no right to know the source of funding. The counsel from the government side has argued that voters do not need to know about the source of the funding. Okay, this source basically is the donor. When we are talking about the identification of the donor or the details of the donor, that is against the privacy of this particular donor, or it can lead to victimization of the donor. Okay, so they have given that argument, but Supreme Court said that we are not convinced with this argument. We don't think that voters do not have such right. Okay, voters are part of the electoral system and they should know that what is the source of funding. So as of now, they will be looking at the arguments and then they will pronounce the judgment. But they have given some kind of consideration. They have told that there are certain reforms which are to be done in the scheme. This scheme can be a better version of itself. Okay, so here they have said that there are some kind of deficiencies which can be looked at. We will look at those deficiencies and what CGI has said about that. Okay, after that, there is this article 6 year in the limb to 6 session over 3 days. We will talk about that also in detail. So basically, electoral bond case, the bench expressed doubt about government's argument that voters don't have right to know the source of the political party's funding. Okay, since political parties and their working is important, their internal working is also important. Okay, so they are basically saying that voter should have a right. We are not convinced that voter should not have right to know the source of the funding. Okay, they suggested that a better electoral bond scheme could be devised to address the current scheme's deficiencies. Whatever deficiencies, when we are talking about the concern related to the privacy, they were concerned related to transparency, right of voter versus, you can say, right of the donor. All these issues can be looked at it, and then we can generate a better version of the same scheme. Okay, directed the Election Commission of India to submit details of political contribution received through the electoral bond until September 30, 2023. So what they are saying, that Electoral Commission of India has to give this data to Supreme Court. After that, they will analyze the data and then they will go for some kind of judgment. Okay, so they have to give this data in 2 weeks. Okay, up to September 30, whatever donations has come to the political parties, all the data which ECI has, they have to submit it to the court within the 2 weeks. Even the government's council has said that court has the power to lift the veil. Okay, so this is court lifting the veil now. Okay, so moving ahead, there is a debate about the balance between transparency and the confidentiality. When we are talking about transparency, we are talking about right of voter. Voter should know about the source of funding. And when we are talking about confidentiality, it is about the donor's right. Okay, if let's say a government a party in a government knows about the donor of the opposition, there are chances that they might get victimized here. Okay, so that is why this confidentiality is important in this case. Okay, now the Solicitor General argued that the current scheme maintains transparency as the receiving party knows the donor. Okay, so they are saying that here receiving party knows the donor. Okay, who is the donor? But the thing is, we are talking about voters. Court is saying that why should voter have no right about this transparency? Okay. Other than that, now CGI has given some consideration. They have said that there are 3 to 4 important considerations which are very important. The need to reduce the cash element in the electoral process. Okay, that is, cash element basically lead to your black money transactions. So they say that you have to talk about this consideration, that you have to remove as much as possible this element from the electoral processes. Okay, the need to encourage use of authorized banking channels. Okay, so when we are talking about banking channels, or you can say online transactions, they can use these banking channels because they will generate a data. Okay, and confidentiality of data can be maintained. There are risk of the cyber threats, etc., but that can be managed. You have to have proper infrastructure for that. Okay, incentivizing the use of banking channels, this should result in greater confidentiality, but there is a fourth consideration, that there is the need of transparency. So basically they are saying that there should be transparency, there should be less of element of money, and they are talking about using these banking channels, authorized banking channels, to make sure the confidentiality is maintained. Okay, so that is about the Supreme Court's view on this electoral bond case. They will pronounce the judgment later. The balance between these considerations should be decided by the legislature. So now they are saying that these considerations are basically to act as guidelines to the legislature, because to make law is in the purview of legislature and not to the court. So they are here maintaining this separation of power. They are saying that we will not enter into the domain of legislature. Okay, but we are giving you this consideration that you have to maintain that and make a better version of this particular scheme. Okay, the discussion touched upon the requirement that donation be related to percentage of a company's net profit. So this is about the businessmen, etc., donating money. So they are saying that there should be something about some share related to percentage of a company's profit. That is not important as of now, because we don't know the details of this thing. What they wanted to say here, concern one raised about the voters' right to know and practicality of the policies. Okay, when we are talking about voters' right to know, okay, so what is the limit of it? Because if you tell everything to the voters, there is an issue of confidentiality. Okay, there is the issue of victimization of the donor. All these things you have to remember, and you have to acknowledge all these things and then make a scheme out of it. Okay, the case is ongoing and the court will consider the arguments before issuing a judgment. So that are the concern court has told the government, and they have said that we will be pronouncing the judgment later. For the time being, they have given some consideration to the legislature so that they can make law accordingly, or next time when they are to revise this scheme, they should consider this consideration which is given by the Supreme Court. Okay. Then there is one thing, that money bill issue is pending. As I told you in the concerns, it was thought that this bill was tagged as money bill and to bypass the Rajya Sabha scrutiny. Okay, because when we are talking about money bill, Rajya Sabha has limited power. So to bypass Rajya Sabha, they have tagged this particular bill as money bill and to circumvent the Rajya Sabha scrutiny. Okay, so that issue was also challenged, but court did not go into it. They said that that will be taken up by the 7-judge constitution bench later. Okay, the challenge did not address the issue of whether the electoral bond law could have been introduced as a money bill, as the issue is pending before another 7-judge bench. So basically, there is already a issue related to what constitute a money bill, or the decision of the Supreme Speaker when we are talking about money bill is final or not. Okay, what are the criteria on the basis of which the Speaker can say that it is a money bill or not. Okay. So that issue is pending with the 7-judge bench. So Supreme Court said that will be decided by that bench only. This issue has implication for other legislation such as Aadhaar. Even in case of Aadhaar, this prevention of money laundering case, they have tagged it as money bill to circumvent the scrutiny by Rajya Sabha. So that is why this issue was in the 7th judge bench. They will decide the issue, and then they will have implication on Aadhaar bill as well, Aadhaar Act as well as Money Laundering Act. Okay, and now we are talking about this electoral bond scheme. For that also, this will have some kind of consequences. Okay, so that is the issue which the court has discussed. After that, there was this thing. This I have discussed the issues related to electoral bonds, etc. in the previous lecture. I just used the slide so that you can look at it if you didn't watch the last videos. So you can take a screenshot or whatever. And now this is about the features of electoral bond, which were also discussed in the previous lectures. You can look at it. Now moving to the second article of the day, that is the 6th year in the limb to 6 sessions over 3 years. What they are trying to say is that there has been a delay to take up the issue only. This issue of electoral bond has been somehow in 2019 might be they have actually talked about it in the Supreme Court. Okay, the 6th Chief Justice of India took office, and twice in 2019 and 21 the Supreme Court declined to stay the legislation. When we are talking about this particular legislation, the issue started when this particular legislation came, but after that many Supreme Court Chief Justices came and gone. But whenever this particular issue came to the court, they did not stay the legislation. Okay, so they gave it a go for the time being. Now after 6 years, they are discussing this thing, this issue. But when they started to discuss it, they are trying to finish it in like 3 days. Okay, last 3 days continuously this bench is hearing the issue, and now in 1 or 2 weeks they will pronounce the judgment. Okay, so now here what is the issue is why there is a delay in the hearing of the electoral bond case, or as a matter of fact any case related to which is important for your constitution or has some kind of implication related to the constitutions. Okay, the first petition challenging the electoral bond scheme was filed 6 years ago. Since that time, 6 Chief Justice of India assumed office. Okay, other high stake cases like Aadhaar, abrogation of Article 370, demonetization policy also experienced significant delays. All these issues had certain kind of constitutional implications. Sorry, all these issues has some kind of constitutional implication, and they has some kind of experienced significant delays. Why? Because these issues are not very easy. These are complicated issues, so they need to be considered in a holistic approach. Okay, so let's say in 6 years there were many you can say petitions related to all these issues. They have studied all the petitions and then decided that we will go ahead with the now argument. Okay, The court recognized that the case involved issues affecting the sanctity of the electoral process. In this particular case, when we are talking about electoral bonds, so it affect the sanctity of the electoral process in India. Okay, due to the complexity of the matter, it required an in-depth hearing that could not be concluded before the closure of the electoral bond funding process. So basically, since the scheme was announced till then, now we know that there is this scheme, uh, there is this election in 2024. So there was this collection of money, or you can say the political parties are raising fund out of it. So they have used the data, they wanted to use the data, that is why they waited so long for this, and now they have asked election commission to give them the data. Okay, so that the complexity of the matter cannot be ignored, they will look at the matter comprehensively and holistically. Okay, delays in setting up the constitutional bench are not common. Sorry, delays in setting up constitutional benches are not uncommon. Okay, we have seen that in the case of Aadhaar also, demonetization policy, all these things. Whenever there are need to constitute a constitution bench, there was delay, because the thing is, whenever there is a constitutional bench, it is always more than 5 judge bench. Okay, at least 5 judge would be there in the that particular bench. Okay, so when these 5 judges are going to hear an issue for days, because of which all the other issues related to single bench or two bench issues, they will get affected out of it. Okay, so here you can say it require at least 5 judge benches to sit for days, putting other regular cases on hold. For example, constitutional bench that heard the challenge to abrogation of the article 370 took 16 days. So for this particular issue they took 16 days, and the marriage equality case heard for the over 10 days. So when they are taking so much of time, the other court cases, other work related to the court, that are put on hold, because of which they are taking time to constitute a bench of 5 judges or more. So that is about electoral bond or the issue surrounding it, and we will be waiting for the judgment, and once it comes we will take up it in the news analysis again. Okay, hold on a second. Then developing countries need at least 10 times more funds for climate adaptation, UN report says that. So there is this UN adaptation gap report, which is to be published by UNEP. Okay, it is an annual report. So this particular report basically talks about all the issues related to climate mitigation and adaptation. Okay, so if there is any kind of gap, they will be looking at it. Okay, despite rapidly increasing climate risk, money being made available to developing countries for adaptation measures has been declining. Okay, so in 2009 it was said that in UN climate related conference, it was said that they will be raising $100 every year after 2020. Okay, and that will be given to developing countries for their adaptation related issues or works. But this promise has not been fulfilled yet. Okay, limited amount of money has been raised. Okay, so now they are saying that this climate change is pacing at a very fast rate, but the thing is, when we are talking about the money raised for the adaptation of this risk, that is not up to mark, even they are declining. Okay, it is nowhere close to the scale of the requirement. Whatever is the requirement, let's say if there is a requirement of, I guess, 215 billion US dollars, that is the minimum requirement, but till now only we have generated 21 billion. Okay, so you can look at the things that only 10% we have generated, we have given the money for adaptation related things. Okay, in 2021 just about 21 billion US dollars flowed to the developing countries for adaptation project, and that was a decline from the previous year, 15% decline from the previous year. Okay, so you can see the climate changing pacing up, but the money which is required to adapt is not up to mark, that is declining. Okay, we need at least $215 billion every year to make sure that climate change does not impact in a longer run. But the thing is, that is the minimum amount we are talking about. If we are talking about overall the nationally determined contributions which has been given by countries to the UN, that is nearly $387 billion. Okay, and that is nowhere near to the money we have raised yet. Okay, so adaptation gap report assess the current need for the adaptation finance in two ways. It put together all the requirement put forward by the developing countries, and that come to $387 billion. As I told you that all these are data when we are talking about 387 billion. This is because of the all the nationally determined contribution which has been determined by the countries itself. Okay, when we are talking about those contribution, to achieve those contribution, that is the money which we require. Okay, and when we are talking about minimum money, that is to require to check the climate change related extreme events, that is nearly 215 billion US dollars. Okay, so separately it did a modeling exercise of the kind of adaptation that was required and the money needed for it. That exercise yield a sum of 215 billion US dollars. Okay, so now this is the amount of money that is been mentioned by the adaptation gap report that has been published by UNEP. Okay, it is adaptation gap report released by UNEP. The gap report is published annually. I told you all these things. Okay, so now when we are talking about all these things, these are nothing but the data. Okay, as I told you, this by 2009 in 2019 it was committed that the developed countries will be giving 100 billion US dollars to the developing countries, okay, for their adaptation related works, but they have not done that yet. And now in Glasgow climate summit which has happened, or the conference which has happened in 2021, they have said that we will be doubling the amount of money. Whatever they have committed earlier, they could not provide that also, and in 2021 they have said that we will be committing the double of that money. But the thing is, only committing won't help, you have to walk the talk. Okay, so that is one thing. The report suggests that the current ambition on rising climate finance would not be enough. Whatever we are doing right now, that is not enough. While the doubling of the adaptation finance by 2025 and the new collective qualified goals for the 2030 that is under deliberation will be instrumental in helping the close this financial gap. This, when we are talking about this particular commitment which was done in the Glasgow, this commitment, and if the efforts are done for this commitment, would only reduce the gap by 5 to 10%, but it will not close it. Okay, so that gap will always stay. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, let's see what report has said. Other than that, the adaptation gap report highlights the growing disparity between the required funding and the available resources for the climate change adaptation. Okay, so they are saying that whatever we require and whatever resources available, there is a huge gap. Okay, now in 2021 only about 21 billion was allocated to developing countries, okay, which was 50% less than the previous donation. Okay, that I have discussed. Developing countries collectively require at least 215 billion US dollar annually in this decade to carry out meaningful climate change adaptation work. This requirement is outlined in the nationally determined contributions, NDCs. Okay, these NDCs are being given by the countries themselves. You can say that that is the work plan or a framework within which the countries will work to adapt for the climate change. Okay, as per those things, we require nearly this is the minimum amount, we require nearly 387 billion US dollars for this particular nationally determined contributions. Okay, now the developed country has pledged to mobilize at least 100 billion in climate finance annually from 2020, but this target was not been achieved, or they did not do it or as they committed. And in 2021 Glasgow climate conference, developed countries committed doubling their funding for adaptation. Okay, they have committed a lot but done nothing. There is also an agreement to set a new climate financing goal beyond this 100 billion per year by 2025. That is also just a commitment. We don't have seen any result. The report suggests that the current ambitions to raise the climate finance is insufficient to close the adaptation finance gap. It calls for the greater reliance on the domestic resources and private finance for the adaptation efforts. So ultimately what they are now saying is that despite all this international funding etc., what you have to do is you have to depend on your own resources and you have to use the private players in the financing of the climate change related adaptation work. Okay, So that is about the adaptation gap report. This report identifies 7 ways to bridge adaptation gap, including, so they are giving these 7 ways, okay, but in your newspaper only few are given. So increasing international finance flows, okay, they are saying that we will increase, but they are not giving it. Mobilizing the domestic resources, reforming global financial architectures to improve access to finances for climate related projects. So when we are talking about financial architecture, here we are talking about World Bank, IMF, and other banks related to development, etc. Here author is saying that the report is saying that these particular architectures can be reformed so that we can easily get the credit or the loans for the climate change related works. Okay, climate change adaptation is a vital for protection of the livelihood and the ecosystem, particularly in the vulnerable regions with limited resilience. Okay, when we are talking about vulnerable sections here, all those island related nations, because of the rise in the sea level, those will be the first target. You know that when we are talking about Indonesia, okay, so the capital of Indonesia has been submerging, so they have to shift the capital. Okay, so you can give the name of that new capital in the comment box. Okay, so now we'll talk about this. Kozhikode has been awarded this city of literature by UN's, you can say, a body, that is UCCN, UN, UNESCO's Creative Cities Network, that is basically UCCN. So what does this body do is they actually go for the cities, they look at the cities which are working on the sustainable goals, etc. They are going for some kind of creative solutions, etc. Or you can say they have some kind of important culture or literature or music related work, okay, and they can be set as example, okay, for the world. Here Kozhikode in the Kerala was added to the UNESCO's Creative City Network list. The Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh was also among the 55 cities which has joined the network. So when we are talking about India, there are 2 cities, that one is Kozhikode, then second is Gwalior in MP. Kozhikode is for their literature, Gwalior is for their music. Okay. The cities have been handpicked to represent 7 creative fields: craft, folk art, design, film, gastronomy, literature, media arts and music. So these are the fields from which these cities are being selected. Okay. Kozhikode was included in the category of literature, Gwalior in the category of music. You have to remember this. This can be an important statement in your exams. Okay. So when we are talking about this Creative City Network, it is created in 2004 to promote cooperation among the cities that have identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. Okay. So there are 350 cities in the 100 countries. So basically what they are doing is they are identifying these cities on the basis of these 7 parameters, and they are looking at these cities in a way that how they are contributing to the urban sustainable development. Okay, so ultimately it is related to somewhere, it is related to sustainable development goals and climate change, etc. Okay, so that cities to be used as a model cities. Okay, now object of the UCCN is recognize creativity as an essential component of urban development. Creativity as an urban component of urban development. Here these, when we are talking about these 7 parameters: crafts, folk art, design, film, gastronomy, literature, media arts and music, all these are creative things, and which are to be amalgamated with the urban development. Okay, notably through the participation of public and private players on the civil society. So basically when in an process of urban development, when society and the civil society and public and private players are contributing to it, that is the criteria for these people to select a city. It invests to develop hubs of creativity and innovation, broaden opportunity for the creators and the professionals in the cultural sector. So basically when such things are become hub, when we are talking about Kozhikode, a hub for literature, okay, so all the people related to literature have some kind of inclination toward Kozhikode, they would want to visit that place, there would be employment generation, etc. Okay, these cities have to achieve UN agenda for sustainable development. Once these cities are kind of, you can say, selected, they have to achieve the sustainable development goal, which is basically your UN agenda for sustainable development. Okay, so that is ultimately you are giving some city a recognition and then you are telling that to go for the sustainable development. Okay, so that is a good approach. First you recognize their achievement and then ask them to go for sustainable development. Okay, Now, Indian cities and network, I told you about that. Kozhikode and Gwalior are newly selected. Other than that, Varanasi is also selected for music. Then Srinagar is selected for the crafts and arts, folk arts. Then Chennai is for music. Okay, so three cities: Gwalior, Varanasi, and Chennai is for music. And then when we are talking about Kozhikode, it is for literature, and Srinagar is for craft and folk arts. Okay, the first Malayalam novel, Kundalatha, was born in Kozhikode in 1887. Okay, that is just one fact. If somehow in some PCS exam they might ask about it, otherwise it is not important. So that is about the third article, that is related to a Kozhikode. Putin withdraws Russia's ratification of CTBT. As I told you that we have discussed this article, that the Russian government is trying to withdraw from the this CTBT, not withdraw, basically they are trying to withdraw the ratification. Actually, when there is a pact signed or the treaty is signed, once it is signed, then it is ratified by the government of the domestic government or the government of the country. Okay, so most of the countries in this particular CTBT, or let's say influential countries like US, etc., they signed the treaty but they did not ratify it. Okay, Russia did it. Okay, and now they are saying that since USA did not ratify it for so long, we want to be at par with the USA, so that if USA does something, some extreme action, we are in the position to do that too. Okay, so that is why they have withdrawn the ratification. So now there are some kind of discourses which are saying that Russia might go for another nuclear test. Okay, if that is true, the thing is Russia has denied that they are not going for it anyways. They are saying that if USA goes for it, then we will retaliate. But ultimately, the lobby, or the, you can say, in the scholars in the IR, they are saying that because of the Ukraine and Russia war, okay, so they are trying to create a impact on it, or because of which they might go for a nuclear test. Okay, but if this particular thing starts, if this race starts again, that would won't be good for us. That will be futile in nature. Okay, because everyone possess these weapons of mass destruction now. Okay, so that is one thing, that Russia has withdrawn from the CTBT. When we are talking about this CTBT, it was adopted in 1996. It banned all the nuclear explosions anywhere in the world, but the treaty was never fully implemented because it was signed by many people but not ratified by many. In addition to the US, it is yet to be ratified by China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, Israel, Iran, and Egypt. You can say here USA is a nuclear state, China is a nuclear state, India is a nuclear state, Pakistan is a nuclear state, North Korea is a nuclear state. When we are talking about Iran, Iran is also trying to get a nuclear weapon. So ultimately, all these people having nuclear aspirations or the nuclear weapons, they did not ratify this treaty. Okay, so now Russia has done it. Now they have also de-ratified it. Okay, so President Vladimir Putin on Thursday signed a law withdrawing Russia's ratification of the global treaty banning the nuclear weapon test, condemned by the organizations which promotes adherence to the landmark arms control pact. Okay, so this is what has happened now. They are saying that this is the move came after, because of the rise in tension between USA and Russia because of the Ukraine war. Okay, after Cuban Missile conflict, which happened in 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis, which happened in 1962. After that, this is the lowest they have gone in their relationship. Okay. Now, as Putin, I told you that Putin has said that we will not resume any nuclear testing unless Washington does too. Okay, and now they are also saying that we will continue to share the data, etc., nuclear data, which they were supposed to do under the CTBT. But only thing is they are de-ratifying it. Okay, but if Washington does something like that, they will do it too. Okay. Now, Soviet Union last tested a nuclear weapon in 1990s. When in 1990s, USSR has last tested their nuclear weapon, and 1992 USA has tested their nuclear weapon. Other than that, exception for the North Korea, no one in the century has tested this nuclear weapon for a long time now. Okay, so that is about this thing. Such a move, if it happened, could usher in a new era of big nuclear testings, which is not good in any way. Okay, so that is about this particular news article. And then there is this this is about CTBT. You can read it. Okay, there is nothing new in this. Only thing is it's an international treaty which prohibited all of nuclear exploration for both civilian and military purpose. Here it is important that for both military and civilian purposes. Okay, it was negotiated in 1990s, or you can say 1996. Okay, and to prevent nuclear weapon testing, thus promoting global disarmament and non-proliferation. While the treaty has been signed by many nations, it has not entered into force, as several key countries including USA has not ratified it. We have discussed all these things. I have just written it for your convenience. Okay. Now 2+2 dialogues. The external affairs minister and the defense minister of USA will be meeting their counterparts in India in next let's say few days or months. So they will be coming, and we have also invited President Putin for our Republic Day. Okay, so all these things are in this particular thing. This dialogue becomes important for us because now, considering the uncertainties going on in the Middle East, and when we are talking about Russia-Ukraine war, and now that Russia has de-ratified the nuclear ban treaty, all these things are implications which can be discussed in this particular meeting. Okay, these dialogues are very important because they will discuss all the diplomatic and the security defense related issues in this particular dialogue. Since we are strategic partner, US and India are strategic partner, that becomes very important for these countries to cooperate on these levels. Okay. So here they will be discussing about bilateral as well as the global concerns. Okay, Russia, we have discussed it. India has invited Biden for the Republic Day celebration, plan to host Quad Leaders Summit in January. Okay, so now here one thing is important, that now we are kind of considering hosting a summit for Quad leaders. When we are talking about Quad, there are 4 countries member like USA, India, Japan and Australia. When we are talking about these Quad members, all these Quad members has 2+2 dialogues with India. Okay, so Japan, Australia, USA has this 2+2 dialogue with India as well. Okay, now India USA 2+2 dialogue is a high level diplomatic and security forum between India and United States involving their respective foreign and defense ministers. Okay, it aims to strengthen the strategic cooperation which already we have, defense ties, and address the regional and the global security issues. Okay, the two countries discuss defense partnerships, counter-terrorism, trade, and other bilateral concerns, bilateral as well as you can say global concerns. Okay, India has held the 2+2 dialogue with several countries, that is USA, Japan, and Australia. These 3 countries along with India are members of Quad. So you can guess the importance of Quad in this world for us now, because since we want to counter China, all these countries also want to counter China, and that is why they have made a group organization called Quad. Okay, so moving further, Bhutan's king arrived on week-long visit today. First stop is in Assam. So basically he will be going to Assam, then he will visit some Kaziranga National Park, etc. Okay, so for your this Kaziranga National Park become important. Anyway, it is a world UNESCO site, heritage site. So it is famous for one-horned rhinos. You can remember this fact. Okay, so this meeting, or you can say this particular visit, came after the agreement which is signed by Bhutan and China related to their boundary disputes and the technicalities of that dispute. So they have made a team of experts which will be talking about thinking about this boundary settlement. Okay, so now there is this agreement, and after this agreement, Bhutan's king is visiting India. Other than that, when we are talking about Bhutan's relations with India, this has always been exceptionally good, because Bhutan has always wagging behind India. And other than that, we have hydropower related cooperation, we have defense related cooperations, we have cultural and you can say tourist related ties. Okay, so that is we are having good relations with the Bhutan. Okay, other than that, other than Assam, he will be visiting Maharashtra as well. So this is an opportunity for both sides to review the entire gamut of bilateral cooperation and advance the bilateral partnership across diverse areas. Okay, so that is about this article. When we are talking about the location of Bhutan, Bhutan has a boundary which is touching Sikkim, West Bengal, and you can say Assam here. Okay, so Bhutan's boundary is touched in 3 states in India, and longest boundary is in with the Assam, that is around 286 kilometers or something. Sorry, 265 kilometers. Okay, and in Assam he will be visiting that particular area, that is Kaziranga National Park. Okay, so let's see, when we are talking about this issue, that is Doklam. This Doklam is the on the trilateral of the Sikkim, Bhutan, and China. Okay, so India, Bhutan, and China, the trilateral junction of Doklam exists here. Now, when we are talking about the border related dispute between Bhutan and China, okay, so these are some old disputes, that is Doklam, then Jakarlung, and this is Pasamlung. All these things are old disputes, but recently, 1 or 2 years back, this Sakteng Wildlife Sanctuary, China is saying that the part of this particular sanctuary is also belonging to China. Okay, so these three things you have to remember. Okay, moving forward. This Navy veteran sentenced to death. We have discussed this article. Here in this article, there are three particular, ways India can do, or the options which are available to India. All these things are the basically fact of the case which we have discussed. I will not go into it, but now here you can see there are three legal processes, or you can say options India has. First is the legal process, that is the first court of the first instance, wherein we can challenge the order by the Qatar's court in the higher court in the country. Okay, so wherein we can give the counselor access, etc. We can give the support to these 8 people. Okay, that is the first thing to do. Second is mercy petition. So mercy petition will be filed before the Amir of the Qatar. That Amir will decide or for the mercy or not. This petition will be filed by the family of the people who are under the death sentence. But the support is being given by the government of India. Third is political and the diplomatic options. So when we are talking about Qatar, we have good relations with Qatar. We have defense related. We have LPG, energy security related cooperation, LPG related, and then we have investment in India. Qatar has done investments in India. Other than that, we have defense ties, defense cooperation, fair amount of goodwill with the Qatar. There are nearly 8 lakh people working in the Qatar, and they are considered as law-abiding citizens. Other than that, there are influential Indians which can talk with the government and find a solution of this particular problem. So all these things can be done. That is the diplomatic and the political options available to India. Now the challenge is that Qatar has increased their geopolitical sway, because of, I told you that there are some swing states. Even though they are small states, but they have some kind of power to swing the issues. Okay, so here Qatar has this swing because of when we are talking about the Taliban related issues, when we are talking about this Hamas and Israel conflict, in these things Qatar has a significant stake, and Qatar has been talking about releasing this Israeli hostages from the Palestinian side. Okay, so that is why Qatar has important in the global level also. But now when these charges, the person facing the charges are charges of espionage on the behalf of Israel, now that becomes the problematic thing, because the thing is there are not very good you can say when we are considering the uncertainties of there is a war in the Middle East, and because of which, when we are talking about the people are spying on Qatar on the behalf of Israel, that kind of misses the trust which has been with the India. Okay, so that is the challenge. We have to assure that there is nothing like that. How Delhi negotiate the allegation of spying for Israel, that is the tough task for us to negotiate. Okay, so that is the 3 options which are available, and that is the challenge. Okay, we'll end this session. Before that, we will look at this advertisement. Okay, the point here is not to advertise any government or something, but the thing is transforming India into a food basket of the world. Okay, so now here they are talking about food processing. You don't get much articles or much data about the food processing, etc., but it is an topic which is mentioned exclusively in your syllabus. So that is why you can go through this particular thing, and you can get 1 or 2 data out of it. Let's say since 2014, processed food export reached over 1 lakh crore from 30,000 which was earlier there. Okay, so 1 lakh crore worth of food we are now exporting. Okay, other than that, you can see here, since the 2014, the industry has attached foreign direct investment worth over 43,000 crores. Okay, giving boost to the India's food processing sector. That is another factor you can remember. Then there is the total number of approved cold chain unit, mega food parks, and the other projects in at all time high, that is around 1345. so these are the data you can extract from such advertisements also. Okay, these are not just waste of pages in the newspaper. You can just extract these important information from these articles as well. Okay, this is the statement, you can read it and you can use it in your exams, etc. So I guess that is all for today's newspaper. We'll finish the session here and I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, have a good day. Thank you.